things are made from one, and in the end, all things return to one.
In other words, one is all.
Indeed, and all is one as well.
All is ultimately of the one. So if all is not included in the one, then all is nothing.
You have passed.
You start to understand how all the different dimensions are interconnected, but realizing, like, even when we think of our comfort zone, or like, say for instance, when we quote unquote self-sabotage. Again, much love to Till Swine for bringing this up from this perspective, because it brings a little more truth into it. Self-sabotage is not necessarily like you just trying to sabotage what's going on, but more so it's about harmonizing the inner dimensions. You are a multi-dimensional being. You have different dimensions of yourself. You have different dimensions of yourself in connection with this lifetime and a certain other past lifetimes, and the accumulation of all of them. Then, a connection that goes beyond your human experience, all that into your human experience. But it's not necessarily self-sabotage. Again, it's a different dimension of yourself that's not in alignment with what you're trying to do. So it comes off as self-sabotage. And a good example is, like, if you're doing something that promotes growth, and then all of a sudden, a part of you that's scared of growth, you get triggered to go into that part of yourself. So say, for instance, whenever you was an 8th grader is when you felt the most secured in your life. You felt like real, like everything, like I'm taken care of. Then whenever things start to get, whenever you start to feel like, all right, things moving too fast, I need some security, the sense of like I need some form of secureness, because again, when you're stepping into the unknown or having to face any type of fear, in essence, we may go to security blankets or comfort zones, And again, a comfort zone or a security blanket is also a certain dimension, because we go into a certain dimension of ourselves. So again, I may run to the dimension of myself when I was an 8th grader. So I go to start doing some of the things I was doing in 8th grade. And literally, again, it's like jumping into that dimension. You could see it as like, as running away in essence, or as like a coping mechanism. It's like you jumping into that dimension in order to run away from, what's being presented, in the now moment, which is accumulation of all those dimensions. But again, you get into that space where you centered with, harmonizing all the dimensions, because literally, that's another part to the whole spectrum of dealing with this realm, dealing with cause and effect, or dealing with karma, and creating new cycles, breaking out of old cycles, our quote unquote family, sicknesses, and again, that connection with our chakras, our organs, Oh, if I dealt with a lot of fear is held in the kidneys. So, your family, if you don't do something to face your fears on an energetic level, and then also again, with facing your fears, keeping your kidney healthy, then your family will possibly, a bloodline or ancestral line that manifests into this realm, have to deal with, kidney problems and facing fears. Again, hypothetically speaking, if they're, again, if you don't, face it and deal with it in this lifetime, then it'll get recycled, into the situation. But again, not going too far from the dimension jumping thing, again, you'll jump into a different dimension of yourself when you're trying to run away from, harmonizing all the dimensions in the now moment. So the now moment, reason why we may run away from it, because it could be overwhelming with having to harmonize all of the dimensions into this now moment. So we run into a compartment of ourselves, because it feels easier to just run into, the part of me. And this where you see, because also the comfort zone or the area that we run into, in a lot of cases is connected with why we experiencing certain lesson loops, because you keep having to go through that cycle because you keep running away into this part, and this part that you're running away into is, letting you know that, hey, the blockage or what prevents you from moving forward is because you have some type of comfort zone issue with this dimension of your being, and it's layered, again, whether it's when you were in the 8th grade again, but when you was in the 8th grade, that dimension is also connected to some past life, but you see how it's all layered into it. But running into, these different dimensions of yourself, is literally like trying to run away, That's also like what the whole thing with, more so the divine masculine karmic, you could say one of the karmic issues with the divine masculine, extreme in essence, is like that adventurous, wanting to go out and discover things to the point where you forget, like almost like, like going to discover things or running into other dimensions to try to run away from, from what's going on, in the present moment, using exploring as an excuse to run away from what's present, And you could even see that in, like, say, for instance, again, like doing drugs, may personify, a past life where you was like a being, a masculine being that, wanted to go out and discover because you was running from something you had to face, in one world. So you just kept running away into other worlds because you didn't want to face this certain thing. So within this dimension, in this lifetime, your biggest thing is dealing with escapism, or, that Neptune energy, negative side of Neptune, that escapism where you're always trying to run away from, facing something in the moment with drugs or something like that. But again, that literally is a personification of, again, just running in general, like some form of escapism. And you could try to escape even in the different dimensions of yourself. You could try to escape into your childhood, and then you get into a space where you no longer care about, let's just say again, from an early example, like you run into this space because you're afraid to grow. Something is calling for you to grow. So you run into this space of, a dimension where you didn't have to care about growing. You know what I'm saying? Like when you was this age or at this point in your life, you didn't have to worry about growing. So let me run into this dimension of myself. You know what I'm saying? Let me run into this chakra area, because also, again, different chakras deal with different stages of our development. Let me go into, this chakra or this area as a safe haven. And you keep going into that chakra, not being able to fluently move through all the chakras. So you create a situation where you're having to keep incarnating and having to learn how to move past your sacral chakra or your heart chakra, or move past your throat chakra, or not get too caught up in your high chakras, or not get too caught up in your lower chakra, you know what I'm saying? But having to learn some type of balance or something like that. But you know, again, this is all interconnected, and just more so showing how the simplistic, you know, everyday just self-help, you know, that we deal with from the human perspective is also a personification of dealing with multiple dimensions, multiple lifetimes. And, you know, just like how they create these movies of traveling into different dimensions, that's also a personification of us just doing our inner work, you know, and journaling and, you know, tapping into these different parts of ourselves. So, bam, that was a mouthful. Now it's a vibrate. Y'all know what it is.